Greetings, everybody. Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to another one of my Richard's Rock Rambles. So I thought what we do for the next bunch of videos is have a look at a subgenre called the concept album. Something which has sort of fallen out of favor. There's not too many of those being done these days. Of course, very big in the 70s, if you only think about bands like The Who with Tommy, and later on they had Quadrophenia. And then in the 80s, it was the 80s? Yes, I think it was the 80s when you had bands like Queensryche bringing out Operation Mindcrime, etc. So, yeah, there aren't too many of those happening at the moment. But I thought what we do is we go back and have a look at some of these concept albums. In fact, the two that I'm going to talk about today, I wasn't even aware that there was a concept album as such. We're going to go and check out the British band, who had a lead singer at that stage by the name of Fish. And yes, we're talking about Marillion. So the two albums we're going to talk about are Misplaced Childhood and Clutching at Straws. They came about a year apart, and the second one would actually be the final album to feature Fish before he left them. And he was replaced by a gentleman by the name of Steve Hogarth. So the first album we're going to check out, Misplaced Childhood, is this one here. I love that cover, that kid with a uniform on. So, when was this released? It was released in June 1985, and this was their third album. First two did pretty well, but this is the one that really put them on the map. Some great tracks on here. Pseudo Silk Kimono starts off the album. Well, let me first tell you about the concept, okay? So, I love this story. The concept came to Fish after a 10-hour, listen to this, 10-hour acid trip. So I suppose if you're going to have an acid trip, make it a nice long one. And it's basically stories of lost love and success, sudden success, acceptance, and lost childhood, basically. So it's kind of autobiographical, as is the next album, about Fish, essentially. And in his dream, or in his acid trip, he saw this kid with this uniform on, sort of in the corner of his eye, standing behind him on some stairs, and that triggered a whole lot of lyrics in his head and what have you. And so that's pretty much the story. So like I said, Pseudo Silk Kimono starts off the album. Then you have probably the biggest hit that a lot of people, I know my very good friend Bonnie, she named her kid after the song, Kayleigh. And it's spelled here Kayleigh. In fact, it was a girlfriend of Fish's that he had back in the day, but her name was Kaylee, Kayleigh. So he just changed the spelling a bit. So that's also part of what he had in his acid trip. What else is on here? So that was the big hit. That kind of was the first single or second single from the album to come off. Bittersweet, Heart of Lothian, and Lothian was part of Scotland that Fish came from. Waterhole Espresso, Bongo, Lords of the Backstage. And then you had the Childhood's End and White Feathers. And the other big hit on here, I forgot to mention, after Kayleigh, was Lavender. Now, I don't know if you remember as a kid, there was that song, Lavender's Blue, Lily, Lavender's Green. And that's pretty much what he took as sort of inspiration for that track on here. So that's pretty much the concept for the album. There's some incredible guitar work on here from Steve Rothery, one of my favorite guitarists in rock, especially in the sort of prog rock genre. Very reminiscent of a David Gilmour or Andrew Latimer from the band Camel. And of course, Fish, a very larger-than-life presence on here as well as on stage. I really enjoyed his time with Marillion. It took me a while to get into Steve Hogarth. Very different style, but I've come to accept him as the singer, and he's also really good. So let's tell you who else is in the band here. If I can read this minute writing, which is why I'm struggling to read things out to you. You know, my eyesight's not what it was, as is the rest of me. But that's a story for another day. So let's see who's in the band here. So Steve Rothery on guitars, like I mentioned. Fish, obviously, he's the singer. Mark Kelly on keyboards, great keyboardist. Lots of little sort of interludes in between the guitar and the bass and the drums, just to round things off, give it a nice bit of color. Pete Chihuahuas on bass, excellent bassist. I think he's also part of that band called the Flower Kings, if I'm not mistaken, the other prog band. And then Ian Mosley on percussion and drums. Music by Kelly Mosley, Rothery, Chihuahuas. Lyrics by Fish. Obviously, it was his concept. And, yeah, his real name is Derek Dick. So I suppose, yeah, Fish is probably a better option there. Recorded at Hansaton Studios in Berlin, March to May of 1985. So that's the first concept album we had a look at. Sort of loose concepts. Marillion's Misplaced Childhood. And that's the script. There's the Jester who was on their previous album, Script for a Jester's Tear. There he is running out the window. So it's sort of connected to the previous albums. And that's Marillion. And we're carrying on with Marillion. I'm going to go to the year 1987, so not long after Misplaced Childhood. In fact, on the 4th of June 1987, they released this album, which, as I said, the final one with Fish, Clutching at Straws. There's a guy sitting in a pub there. Sorry about the glare here today. And there's the black and white shot and the song titles. This is a very dark album. It's let me just tell you about the concept. Basically, a character called Torch, 29 years old, his life is a mess, seeks comfort in alcohol. A lot of the songs are alcohol, around alcohol in this. You can even hear the bottle rattling in the glass and everything else. Failed marriage, deadbeat father, and lack of commercial success as singer in a band. So yes, it's about Fish pretty much, if you sort of read between the lines here. I like this album probably more than I do Misplaced Childhood because of the darkness, and it's edgy and it's very melancholy. There's a lot of upbeat tracks on here, but it's not an upbeat album, if you know what I mean. Excuse me, I'm just having my morning coffee here. So what are the tracks? Starts off with Hotel Hobbies. See, I can read this properly because the writing's bigger. Yeah. Warm, Wet Circles. Now, if you go to a pub and you put your glass down, there's always a circle left there, unless you're using a coaster, of course. So that's pretty much what that's about. That Time of the Night, in brackets, The Short Straw. Going Under, Just for the Record. White Russian, one of my favorite tracks on here. Incommunicado, that was a big hit off this album. With some great singing from Fish. I think he was at his best on this album. He would obviously go on to do a lot of solo albums, and I think he released his final album about a year or so ago. He's called it a day. He's getting on now. So that was Incommunicado. Torch song, Slant Mahath. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Celtic. Sugar Mice, another great track. Also a single of here, The Last Straw and Happy Ending. Well, there's not too much happiness in this album, but it's really well produced. The musicianship is top draw. Anything Marillion does musicianship-wise is great. Same as lineup as the previous album. Pete Chihuahuas, Ian Mosley, Mark Kelly, Steve Rothery, and Fish. And of course, Steve Hogarth would be the guy to come in after this, and that album would be Season's End, the first one to feature him as a singer. Recorded at Weststock Studios in London. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can tell you there. Nothing really to show you apart from the lyrics inside. You can see it's the lyrics. There's no pictures really. I think both of these albums that I'm talking about today have had the deluxe treatment. I don't have them. I've just got the bog standard one, and there's a glass. And there's the warm, wet circles behind the glass. So there we go. That's the second concept album we're checking out today, both from the same band. And yeah, so see what else I have in my collection here to show you in the next episode. Please, any comments down below if you enjoy it or not. Give me a thumbs up, it'll be great. And subscribe if you haven't yet. And I shall catch you all soon. Have a fantastic week. The weather's changing here in Cape Town. It's starting to get hot, which is great because I'm pretty much done with the rain. And yeah, we shall see. Before you know it, will be jingle bells and Christmas will be. I can't believe this year's almost done. We're in October. What's happened to this year? Anyway, I'll catch you guys soon. Stay safe. Bye-bye.